great. Thank you so much for joining us at the Family Advocacy Center. This is a place in our community where folks can come to get the help that they need, to feel safe, to connect with services in our community. So I want to thank everybody here, particularly Commander Donovan Olvera, who is our commander here at the FAC. Thank you, sir, for all of your efforts and the entire team each and every day. A couple of folks that I want to thank before we get started, and you'll hear from some of these individuals today. CYFD Deputy Secretary Jennifer Padgett is with us today. Thank you, Jennifer, for being here. Chief Gorden is with us here today as well. Deputy Chief Eric Garcia, thank you, sir, for being here with us today as well. Our task force coordinator that we're going to be talking about today, and you will hear from Sisi, Miranda, is with us today. We have Sergeant Rich Evans is with us today. The clinical experts who gave of their time and their expertise to, in particular, Kristen Ford is here with us today from All Face Receiving Home. Thank you so much. Dr. Renee Ornelas from UNM from the Palo Los Niños Project. Thank you so much for your efforts on this task force as well. On December 27th of 2013, our city lost a young man named Omari Varela, allegedly at the hands of his parents in a horrific child abuse incident. And that was an event that chilled our community, and it really put us in a position from a leadership standpoint to want to look at the systems that we had in place, the systems that we currently have in place, and do everything we can in our power to help the most vulnerable in our community so that we don't have situations like that happen in the future and tragedies happen in the future. And we know a lot of things about child abuse, and we know in some cases that our programs that we have in place work wonderfully for those affected. And we know in this case that a young man in some ways fell through the cracks, and we don't want to see that happen again. So where you could never guarantee that, we just really wanted to get together a task force to take a look at the situation, to do our level best to make sure that we do what we can in our power to make sure that something like that doesn't happen again. And so we launched a task force. And the mission of that task force was to prevent and assist victims of child abuse. And today you're going to hear from the experts that both ran that task force and the experts that helped us collaborate on the task force with the findings that we have. And I think we have put together an exceptional roadmap to move forward to try to fill some of the gaps in services that we found during this situation. The goals, as I said, were to, number one, identify focus areas and opportunities to improve collaboration between the many, many professionals that we have, both in the public, private, nonprofit sectors in our community. To consider technological solutions to share critical information in cases of child abuse. To enhance training for our APD officers and others in the child protection personnel so that we can have a better opportunity to serve our children, and to bring about public awareness regarding a comprehensive strategy for ensuring the safety and the welfare of our children. As we watched the events in last December, and we see the subsequent events since then in our community, and not just in Albuquerque, but really around the United States, mayors like myself are consistently talking about ways to help the situation. And we wanted to bring someone in that we felt had both the passion and the expertise to lead this task force. And you're going to hear from Sisi Miranda in just a little bit. She was the person that we contracted to run our task force. She used to work in the city's Crimes Against Children unit at the Albuquerque Police Department, and she was also a former Deputy Secretary of the State Department of Public Safety. With patience and passion, she really championed this effort, hosting multiple community meetings in Albuquerque and inspiring, in my opinion, community members and experts to provide their knowledge and insight as she forged ahead to create a full report with recommendations that we feel can help move our city forward. So a brief synopsis of the recommendations that Sisi will talk about today include the co-location of CYFD's Protective Services Division to work in collaboration with detectives right here at the Family Advocacy Center. And I want to thank Governor Martinez for making that happen through the CYFD agency. This is a big deal. If you go back to 2007, before the Family Advocacy Center started, We used to have CYFD and PD personnel working together at CYFD, and it was a great thing to start and move the Family Advocacy Center to this location, but it separated the two groups of professionals, and we think this is a great opportunity to bring that back. So once again, to CYFD, thank you for doing that. Child abuse calls require a mandatory police report, and since this task force was convened, to my understanding, we have not had a single incident or case where we have an unfiled report by the Albuquerque Police Department on a child abuse case. Specialized scenario-based training for APD officers is another recommendation that surpassed the New Mexico Law Enforcement Academy's recommendations related to the handling of child abuse cases. And the Albuquerque Police Department already far exceeds some of the state requirements for training in a lot of different areas. But Chief Eden's going to talk to you today about the progress that we've made to this point in training, providing additional training to our officers. Another critical area that came out of this task force was the sharing of critical information and child abuse data between CYFD and APD. Recommendation is the hiring of social workers to work with crimes against children detectives to make sure that we have a collaboration between expertise and professionals and different expertise. Also, a tracking system for CYFD and APD cases to go to the district attorney's office so we don't have a lack of information back and forth between agencies. And then there is also suggested legislation. And as with any difficult issue in our city, it always comes down to a collaboration. There is something for everybody to do here, for the city of Albuquerque, for the Albuquerque Police Department, for CYFD, for our friends in the legislature, and those at the state level. So there's really a lot of work to be done. This detailed task force report, I think, bolsters our efforts to ensure that our city does all we can to care for those who are most vulnerable in our community. These young victims deserve all the support and the care that we can give them. The task force recommendations highlight and build upon existing partnerships already in place to tackle this heartbreaking issue. Now I'd like to have Sisi Miranda come up and maybe delve a little bit deeper into the specific recommendations and the anticipated results from this task force. So with this, this is Sisi Miranda. She's our task force leader. Sisi, come on up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, thank you, Mayor Barry, for giving us this opportunity, because it was quite a journey. Met a lot of people, learned a lot myself. What I want to say, the most important thing for the mayor's office with this project was community involvement. And I really feel comfortable and confident that we picked the right people, not only for the task force, Dr. Renee Ornelas and Christina Ford, but also in creating the expert panels so that the community could both ask questions of and also make recommendations. So this really, the credit goes to the city of Albuquerque, to the community, to the police officers, to the CYFD, to UNMH, to all the different agencies that got together to help for this. The most important thing that the task force feels was accomplished was the moving of the CYFD employees back together with the detectives. When I worked child abuse, that's the way it was, and I think that created maybe some of the lack of better communication and coordinating cases. That was critical. I wish I could take credit for all of that. I think everybody realized at the same time that it was different. I certainly did. When I came into this task force, I did not realize they weren't housed together, because my experience had been that way. So Dr. Ornelas was the first to point out to me, Chief Eden, everybody came up basically with the same idea. They need to work together. These cases involve so many other agencies, so I think that that's already been accomplished. The training. Joe Wolf at the Training Academy was very instrumental in coming up with the scenario-based training. We support that training. Scenario-based training has been given for other types of investigation, and I think it's critical when you role play. You tend to remember more, and you can also demonstrate what's proper, what's not proper. Every single case is different, so getting the experience and acting this out is very good. We do it in other kinds of training. It should be done. The only thing is, we are recommending as a task force to continue with that training and to make it mandatory, even if the New Mexico Law Enforcement Training Academy does not. We think it's important. It needs to start in basic training and continue. The second thing we looked at was technology. In that particular case, the radio audio recording of that incident, if that had been available to the officers that responded, I think we would have seen a much better outcome. We can't say for sure what would have happened, but I feel very confident that anybody that had heard that video or heard that audio tape would have responded differently. I am told that there is a way to send it over to the officer in the vehicle in a WAV file. Technology, again, how can we get the information to the officers out in the field? We came up and we agree with the real-time crime center or dispatch, if the real-time crime center is not available, to contact CYFD and find out if there's any historical information so that officer can make better decisions about what to do. Not just that, what if it's an open case and there's a CYFD employee already assigned to that family? And it's my understanding they like to keep the family cases with the same worker for consistency. It would be important for that person to be notified immediately that they have another call or complaint on that particular family. We thought that was very important. The other thing, collaboration. Everybody came together for this. It wasn't just one agency, one entity. It involved everyone. Citizens, I had teachers, social workers, the nonprofits came out. There are a lot of resources in Albuquerque. Nobody knows how to find them all. Our recommendation was to create perhaps a link on a web page, the City of Albuquerque, the State of New Mexico, where if I'm in trouble or I'm having a hard time, I need some type of intervention with my family because I'm in crisis, I want to be able to look up and call somebody, or I want to be able to find out how do I get my daughter, son counseling, where do I go? And I want to be able to go to one website. I looked at other models. Curious enough, every state that I looked at had similar issues to what we experience here in Albuquerque. I think it's great that we had the opportunity to look at those. It's available on the report and it will be in the report. I think that's about it.
Thanks, Sisi. Appreciate your efforts. Thank you so much.
Sir.
And everybody will be available for questions afterward as well. Next, I would like to introduce CYFD Deputy Secretary Jennifer Padgett. And I'd like to really thank CYFD, Governor Martinez, and their entire team. When we came up with the task force, you never really know how people are going to react to that, who's going to come to the table, who's really going to have their sleeves rolled up and come to work. And I can just tell you, as a citizen that lives here, CYFD came to the table as they always do, and they have a very, very difficult job. But their team came and really worked together with us to craft some of these solutions. So with that, I'd like to introduce Deputy Secretary Jennifer Padgett. Jennifer, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon. First, I wanted to reiterate, I'm going to risk sounding redundant here, but I'm going to reiterate some of the things that Mayor Barry and Ms. Miranda has said, because this really has been a collaborative, unified approach that the City of Albuquerque, State of New Mexico, and Children's Youth and Family have taken in the face of adversity and tragedy. New Mexico is lucky to have a governor whose passion and dedication for protecting New Mexico children has been a top priority. And without her passion and dedication, I don't know that the results, the solutions, would have been able to have been accomplished at the incredible rate that they were. We saw the tragedy in December, and we all are aware of the bureaucracies and the hurdles that so many of us face in city government and state government, and the higher-ups really focused on solutions. And today is a true testament of exactly what those solutions can be, what they are, and how we can work together to hopefully avoid another tragedy like the Omar Varela situation. So thank you, Mayor, Thank you, Chief. And of course, thank you, Governor Martinez. Secretary Dinas does send her regrets. She wanted to be here today, and unfortunately, she can't be. All of us at CYFD, community-based providers, have recognized the integrity of the child advocacy and the family advocacy model for some time. And again, in the face of adversity, we all looked and said, how can we accomplish this? How can we co-locate? How can we collaborate to bring the investigators, the protective service investigators, and the crimes against children investigators together to ensure that there are no gaps in the investigation and that everyone is on the same page. We were able to do that with an invitation. I received a call from Chief Eden as soon as all the information started to come out, and he said, we have a solution, and we got on it. And together, we really did accomplish moving CYFD investigators into this building. And from what I can tell, everything is running quite smoothly, and the communication and the collaboration has been incredible. As child and public safety advocates, all communities are affected by crimes against children. We talk about collaboration, we talk about cooperation, and we talk about efficiency. However, what underlies all of this is the proven fact that family advocacy centers and child advocacy centers mitigate and help curtail the trauma and the re-victimization that a child faces through navigating this process. Very scary process. Starts with a forensic interview, then a sexual assault examination, and into counseling and crisis counseling and continued counseling through the child's life to possibly get them ready for the courtroom testimony. And this process, if the child and the family can get all of the services and the advocacy that they need under one roof, it really does help mitigate and curtail that trauma and re-victimization. We're aware that the Family Advocacy Center and the community advocates, we might not be able to stop and curtail crimes against children, but as a unified resource, we can work for a streamlined investigation process to identify gaps, fix the gaps, and again, ensure that hopefully another tragedy never takes place. At the end, we're also ensuring public safety to hold the perpetrators accountable for the crimes that they commit against children. CYFD came in, and just to kind of speak to some of the arrangements, we brought in our investigatory team, our investigators out of the Protective Service. They will be working alongside, under the same roof, in the same area as the Albuquerque Police Department Crimes Against Children unit. I wanted to thank, of course, our Protective Service Division, the boots on the ground that really made sure that this happened. Seems easy to kind of move 8 people into a new office environment. In fact, it's not easy at all. You have things like data lines and internet and everything else that really kind of proves to be an impediment, but they weren't impediments at all. And thanks to Jared Roundsville, our Director of Protective Services, Grace Hernandez, one of our county office managers, Joseph Madrid, another county office manager, and then the regional manager, Lisa Madrid, who I don't see here today. But they really did take the executive order, although an order, to heart. And together with APD, they accomplished what they needed to accomplish. So again, from the bottom of my heart and from CYFD, thank you for the advocacy, continued advocacy from the community provider level through the crimes against children. And again, Jared, for what CYFD and Protective Service does. This has been an incredible accomplishment, and we look forward to working with everyone involved. Thank you.
Let me grab the bottom sheet.
Yeah.
Got it?
There you go.
Thank you so much. Jennifer, thank you so much, and send our thank yous to the governor, please, for all of her efforts. Lastly, I'll bring up Chief Gorden Eden, and I believe that Chief Eden has really taken this task to heart and came up with some very innovative solutions. Of course, the fact that some of the solutions that we have are really collaboration between multiple agencies and experts that we have from the nonprofit sector, I think speaks volumes about this collaboration. So I'm going to have Chief Eden come up and give you some of the progress made to this point in time and some of the things that APD is doing when it relates to some of the training issues that Sisi brought up earlier. Chief?
Thank you. Well, first of all, I'd like to give credit where credit is due. When I sat down with our violent crime staff and the leadership in violent crimes, one of the things they told me that was really slowing progress on advancing crimes against children in the cases is that we had to get CYFD back in under one roof. Our crimes against children unit under one roof was CYFD. And you know, sometimes it's the executive management that is reluctant. But that day when I called Jennifer, first of all, she answered her phone. But second, she answered the call. There's a difference. People answer their phone every day, but do they answer the call? And that's exactly what Jennifer did, and I thank you, Jennifer, for your leadership at CYFD. I had the pleasure of working with her in my prior position, and I can tell you that there's no better partner than CYFD when it comes to taking care of our children. Sergeant, I want to thank you for your leadership over here, and know that the management team at the Albuquerque Police Department is here for you. And when you have any concerns, you just know we'll work every day diligently to make sure that you have what you need. And that leads me to what I believe was one of the areas where we were missing children when it came to identifying child abuse cases. For years, the United States law enforcement has been teaching about domestic violence. And police officers respond to hundreds of calls across the United States every day for domestic violence. We know what to do with the adults, but quite frankly, we don't know what to do with the children. Children become victims of domestic violence. They're preyed upon as victims of domestic violence. So we wanted to go one step further, and we created the CARE team here within the Albuquerque Police Department. Those are Child Abuse Response Evaluators. And due to the leadership here at the Family Advocacy Center, and Doctor, thank you so much for what you've done, we now have 21 highly trained CARE officers that are in the Field Services Bureau who can respond to different types of calls whenever a field officer may have any doubt about a child being abused. Because of the training program that you put together, and Doctor, we couldn't have done it without you. And from the bottom of our hearts, we thank you so much for what you've done to advocate for children for so many years. You're the constant face that we see every day. And we owe you a huge debt of gratitude, so thank you. But because of the training that they put together, we now have 21 officers in Field Services Bureau that will be available to other officers who need help in identifying victims of child abuse. But not only that, we'll be running a class soon, and our goal is to have another 40 out quickly. That is our commitment to the community, and I want to thank our Crimes Against Children's unit for doing this. The other thing that I have to tell you about is that when we started discussing this with the mayor was the first one to stand up and say, tell me what you need and we will get it done. You know, Mayor, that's what we needed to hear. And we thank you so much for standing with us as we go out to protect our children. Thank you for your leadership, and thank you for adding those positions to the Albuquerque Police Department. We can't thank you enough. But more important, there's going to be a child someday that's saved as a result of what we're doing here. And we couldn't do it without the leadership that we have, both at the state and the city level. So thank you, Mayor, for doing that. I'm so proud of what we do every day out of this center. We help victims of sexual assault, sexual abuse, domestic violence. It's a one-of-a-kind center. And I'll tell you, the heart of the Albuquerque Police Department is in this center. And I thank the men and women of CYFD for being part of this. And most important, thank you to the men and women of the Albuquerque Police Department. And Doctor, thank you for what you've done to make all of this happen. Mayor?
Thank you. Let's all come up in case there's questions. Doctor, if you're interested, come on up. We'll just, I just want to say one more time, I really appreciate the efforts that have been put in on this task force. I cannot think of a more difficult job in our country than being a professional that gets up every day and works with victims of sexual abuse, child abuse, domestic violence. The work that happens at CYFD and the work that happens at the Family Advocacy Center is really God's work, and I appreciate each and every one of you. I know it's a tough, tough job, so thank you for that. And to all of our folks here that really worked on this task force, thank you. Why don't we open it up now? If you have any specific questions for our experts, we'd be more than happy to answer those.
Why did the CYFD investigators and APD's officers move out from different offices, and when did that happen?
My best understanding is it was in 2007 when the Family Advocacy Center was first set up. And let's make no mistake, this was a great idea and it was well implemented. And we want to thank those who really had a lot to do with setting it up. So it was a good thing. But one of the unintended consequences, and Sisi, please jump in if I'm off base here, was that when the Family Advocacy Center opened, it had a limited amount of space. And the police officers used to be housed at the CYFD offices that had a lot more room because there was a bigger facility there. And I don't know if it was because there wasn't enough room or whatever it happened to be, but there, apparently today there is enough room. So it's just good that we got the two back together. And as I talked to Sisi, it became apparent to us that having police officers and CYFD professionals just talking to each other, running into each other in the hallways, having a cup of coffee, talking, that non-formalized level of communication was very, very important, and that was lost, and now we have that back. So it's once again, but I just don't want it to be taken as any kind of a knock on the Family Advocacy Center. I think it was just one of those decisions that was made, and now we're changing it.
So going forward, now that we have this new plan, what fundamentally is different when an officer arrives to a home and might suspect
Sisi,
there is a potentially child abuse going on? What's different going forward than the way it was before?
Maybe a two-part answer.
Yeah,
We'll have
probably the
Sisi.
chief and
I don't think that's actually on. I don't know if that really.
I don't know.
How's
Yeah,
that?
let's do
Yeah.
that better. What's different? What's different is you heard Chief Eden talk about the CARE specially trained officers. What's different is if I'm a police officer and I get dispatched to one of these difficult cases, I have a resource to contact right then and there. They come to my scene and then they help me make those very important decisions. Should we have CYFD come right now to the scene? Should we have them meet us at the hospital? Should we take custody of this child? Don't forget, the way the law is set up right now, a law enforcement officer is the only person that can take custody of a child immediately. Within 48 hours, CYFD then has to do all of their work, and it's tons of background work to determine whether that child is safe to return to the home, or should they extend it through an ex parte order, and they have to go and talk to a judge to do that. That's the most important thing, in my opinion, that's different for the boots on the ground. For the detectives, and you have gold right here in Sergeant Evans. I brag on him because he deserves it. He worked in that unit as a detective and didn't get enough. Came back and continued, and he's a sergeant in there now. That's the best person, in my opinion, that you can have running that unit. So thank you, Sergeant Evans, because you've got quite a job ahead of you. But it's good to hear that the chief said and the mayor said, whatever resources you need, ask for them. Don't be afraid to ask for more detectives, because that's one of the other questions that came up. Are there enough detectives on the criminal investigations side? So that, to me, I don't know if you want to talk more about.
You did fine.
Thank you.
Is there more access to records as well for the officers out in the field now?
That's one of the goals is from a communication standpoint and from a technology standpoint. So many of the policies that we implement, technology has to catch up to those. And so we'll be working on ways to make this more available to officers. I don't know if you caught this during the conference, but the Real-Time Crime Center that we set up a couple of years ago really has an important role to play here as well. And if you go back to the original format of the Real-Time Crime Center, if you remember the video we showed when we set it up, there's 3 minutes and 38 seconds between when an officer receives a call and when they arrive to an average call. And so we want to use that 3 minutes and 38 seconds, and of course it's different for all kinds of calls, but we want to use that valuable time to have somebody at the real-time crime center looking up and giving that officer more information. So in this case, in some cases it may be, listen, you're heading to a call where we've had 4 or 5 domestic violence calls in the last year and a half. This is an address that has a history. Please understand what you're getting into so that we can help, de-escalate situations. It helps with all kinds of things. In this regard, we're hoping that the Real-Time Crime Center can also pitch in, make contact between CYFD and the officer and say, hey, listen, you're walking into a situation here where there's a case open on this child and there's been a number of incidents, or this child's already been taken out of the home previously. All these things relate to the Omari Varela case. And whereas it's not perfect and it never will be, we're hoping that it adds value to that equation.
So is that set up in place right now if an officer were to?
The Real-Time Crime Center actually is assisting at this point in time. Yeah, maybe Chief.
And if I may expand,
Please.
One of the provisions of the executive order was to utilize the statewide central intake, which is manned by CYFD in a different capacity. In the past, it's been a referral source, police officers having to call statewide central intake to report an instance of child abuse. We've expanded that, so now it's actually a historical database where the police officers can call the statewide central intake, SCI, and actually get a historical snapshot of the family from past up into present that will actually speak to the totality of the circumstances so the officers know what that historical data is that CYFD has in our records upon arriving on scene. And that's based on the numbers that we've seen, that is being utilized and is proving to be very effective.
And you spoke about the 911 call, that if the officers were able to hear that prior to going into the home, that may have, changed the outcomes as well?
Yes, I mean, that's my opinion and my belief. Absolutely. I think anybody that had heard that audio tape would have known that there was something more serious going on with the family than what it appeared to be when they arrived.
But it was my understanding that the dispatcher urged these officers to listen to this recording. Was it because they couldn't listen to it because that technology wasn't in place, or was that something that was negligent of the officer?
No, they could have listened to it. Absolutely, they could have listened to it.
So moving forward, Chief, is that going to be something that happens when officers go out on a call like this? I mean, who makes the decision to send that call over to the officers?
Well, anytime we get a 911 call, it's because somebody has called us. So in most cases of calls, a call comes into the 911 center, the call taker takes that information, provides it to an officer who's being dispatched to the scene. What we're trying to do is close the loop so we don't miss any of the clues when it comes to child abuse. That's why we created the care unit. But more important is to make sure that the successful safeguarding of a child is completed. We have co-located CYFD investigators with the Albuquerque Police Department Crimes Against Children's Unit. So if there's any question that our detectives may have, or any questions that CYFD may have, we're in the same room together, and they can bridge that gap. What happens, no matter where it is, between states, counties, and cities, our IT is siloed. So what we're working towards is tearing down those silos so we can communicate more effectively with each other when it comes to the sharing of the information, which is exactly what the governor did through executive order. So our Crimes Against Children detectives are going to have access to more information. But more important, the investigators from CYFD, who also have some responsibility and duties that have to be completed rather quickly, now we're working side by side with the units. That is the best thing we could do to protect our children. Plus, through the resources that we have here at the Family Advocacy Center, if there's any indication of sexual abuse or any other horrific act, we have the doctor and her services that are available through UNM. And so by putting everybody back together under one roof, what we're doing is we're tearing down those silos so we can effectively investigate allegations of child abuse.
Do you hope this can be a model for the rest of the state? Because this is great for APD, but everyone else in the state is not working under this umbrella.
I can speak to that. Through the executive order, the governor announced last Friday in Valencia County the opening of a child advocacy center there in Valencia County. CYFD in our fiscal year 16 budget, we have asked for a significant amount of money to bring this model throughout the state to set up in the high needs areas. Granted, it's going to look very, very different in rural areas versus the urban central areas, but we are committed to, yes, bringing it and expanding it across the state of New Mexico.
And many times the Albuquerque Police Department and the city of Albuquerque, because we have resources that our friends and neighbors in smaller communities don't have, we always invite them to come in and listen to what we're doing. We're happy to listen to what they're doing, learn from them, and they can learn from us. So our door is always open for that as well.